Well. Another day, another Twitch policy change. That's right. We are once back again here. I've made like several videos about this in the past about the whole Twitch meta and how so many things have been changing, and then all of a sudden Twitch came out and completely changed their policy, allowing for a lot more sexual content to be allowed to stream on their website. And when that first came out, it like less than like a couple days later, already one of the policies got axed, and that was the whole like when it came to a lot of the drawing streams, because like the one section that went absolutely insane over like the new policies was the art section. The art section, like all it was legit just people drawing furry porn and anime porn. That's all it was. I'm not bullshitting you. Like, a lot of people think that the just chatting section is bad, which it actually really isn't as bad as a lot of people think it is. But the art section was bad. Like, legit, I clicked on the art section at the time when the policies first got changed, and I'm not joking you when I say 95% of the streams that were there were literally just anime and furry porn. That's all people were fucking drawing. They went full hog on this, and there was some people who were like, you know, there was a lot of certain drawings that like implied that those characters that were in the drawing were actually underage, and some of them were very, you know, like even trying to push the policies to the point where it's just like, they're not pushing policies, they're pushing the law itself. So Twitch had to obviously pull back on that policy, but now they've pulled back on another policy, which, to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that they have altogether, because I thought that Twitch was just like, we're just going to allow whatever the fuck we want now. Doesn't really matter. But it seems more that the change of the policies to them was more just an experimental to just see where things would go. So we're going to go over what Twitch released in their blog, exactly what policies changed, and then I'm going to give my 2 cents of what I think about these new changes and why I think that they changed it, and why I think it's actually, there's a lot worse than just this policy. Like, there's a lot worse things on that people could do on Twitch than what they're getting rid of right now. So right here, we're going to go through it. So this is the blog here. They say right here, it said, we are updating the entire portion of our community guidelines to prohibit implied nudity while streaming on Twitch. This update is in response to a recent meta on Twitch in which streamers use black censor bars or other items to block their bodies or clothing, such as Boogie's big fat stomach, or position the camera frame such that the viewer is led to believe that the streamer is fully or partially nude. While most streamers have labeled this content appropriately with sexual themes, labels, and are wearing clothing behind the object or outside the camera frame, for many users, the thumbnails of this content can be disruptive to the experience on Twitch. While content labeled with sexual themes label isn't displayed on the homepage, this content is displayed within the category browse directories, and we recognize that many users frequent these pages to find content on Twitch. This update goes into effect today. So they're not taking it, they're not like fucking around, they're not beating around the bush and just say, oh, we're gonna implement this. No. Whenever Twitch releases shit, they're just like, it's coming out today. Then they go on saying, for these areas of the body where coverage is required, the coverage must be fully opaque, sheer, or partially see-through clothing does not constitute coverage. Note also that streamers must appropriately categorize their content. For example, streamers that use attire exception that is granted when streaming near a pool or a hot tub are expected to use the pools, hot tubs, and beaches category when classifying this content. While at times we simply reclassify the stream into the appropriate category, repeated failure to appropriately classify a stream will lead to an enforcement action. Our goal with this and recent changes is to make Twitch a safer and welcoming place for all the communities that call it home, improve the clarity of our policies, ensure that people have the experience they expect when spending time on Twitch. We are currently working on the ability to blur thumbnails for content labeled using the sexual themes label, plus user settings that will allow a user to filter their Twitch viewing experience based upon their preferences for content labeled within content classification labels. I already know about this. If you watch, there was someone did, it was fucking, I can't believe I'm even saying this. Someone did a VR chat interview with Dan Clancy, who's the CEO of Twitch. I can't believe that they did an interview with him in fucking VR chat. It was so funny. It's just like, there's literally these anime girls and cat girls just standing there interviewing Dan Clancy, who was like his model, it was fucking Gandalf, it was fucking hilarious. And even he said that they're already trying to experiment and trying to put into action of them using blurred thumbnails, and also, you know, putting like stuff where it's just like you can tick of whether you want to see sexual content or not. So, and this is right here, this is the updated attire policy as well. So the updated attire policy now reads: we do not permit streamers to be fully or partially nude, including exposed genitals or buttocks, nor do we permit streamers to imply or suggest that they are fully or partially nude, including but not limited to covering breasts or genitals with objects or sensor bars. We do not permit the visible outline of genitals, even when covered. Broadcasting nude or partially nude minors is always prohibited regardless of context. Of course, that should never be allowed. For those who present as women, we ask that you cover your nipples and do not expose under bust. Cleavage is unrestricted as long as these coverage requirements are met and it is clear that the streamer is wearing clothing. For all streamers, you must cover the area extending from your hips to the bottom of your pelvis and buttocks. We're just gonna kind of go. I'm just gonna kind of like go through it as well, of like, you know, reasons why that they've made this change, and why I really think that there's actually still some policies out there and still some things that some creators do that's a lot worse, and that, like, it's really not. I saw Asmongold say it on his stream, because I was watching his stream and I really wanted to hear his 2 cents about it, because, you know, I think that when he, you know, comes to a conclusion for things, he comes to a very logical conclusion for when he, you know, talks about certain subjects. And he said that this is just getting rid of the symptom and not the problem itself, which I 100% agree with him on his conclusion for that as well. But right here, but in the first paragraph, they're talking about, while most streamers have labeled this content appropriately with sexual themes and also wearing clothing behind the objects outside of the frame, there's people that aren't doing that. The reason why that Twitch is like saying this is because their advertisers wouldn't have been happy about this. Because just remember, as much as us as creators don't care about advertisers, Twitch has to a certain extent. Now, obviously, if Twitch catered to their advertisers like exactly what the advertisers wanted altogether, Twitch would just be a fully family-friendly website, and then, you know, no one would like it, and then we'd have the absolute adpocalypse that went down on YouTube, and then, you know, we all know how that fucking ended on YouTube, where YouTube ended up, you know, making things a lot better to the point where it is now, where YouTube, I feel like, when it comes to their guidelines, is in a really decent spot. And obviously Twitch doesn't want to get to that point, but they are pushing the boundaries a little bit, which I think is fine. I think it's fine for Twitch to kind of push their boundaries and see, like, where they can go with things. I don't think it's bad for them to really push the boundaries and say, like, hey, let's try this out, let's see how this works out. I think that's absolutely fine. But obviously they've probably had some pushback from some of their advertisers in terms of some of this sexual content, especially for the implied nudity. And like they've said as well in this blog, there are people who are kind of to some extent following the guidelines and would be wearing clothing behind, you know, the black bars, and then also people who are, you know, labeling their streams correctly. There are a lot of people, it seems, at least from what Twitch is saying, that there are some people who are not doing this correctly and are actually trying to push their guidelines to the extent where they are not following these guidelines anymore. And if you are trying to break the guidelines as much as possible and stretch them, eventually Twitch is just going to go, you know what? You guys are trying to push this too far. So since you're like pushing it too far, you're not going to have any of it, which I 100%, I think is fair enough. And it is Twitch's website, so they're also allowed to do like whatever the fuck they want. One thing that I've already said, and like I said with the whole Dan Clancy thing and the fucking VR interview as well, with him dressed up as him modeling as fucking Gandalf, I think it is really good that they're finally like this to me is something that should have been done a long time ago and should already be like put into Twitch. It is like the blurring of the thumbnails, and for you to be able to filter out the whole sexual content yourself. Now, obviously, these like people who are doing the sexual content, to them, it's not beneficial. It absolutely isn't, because to them, they want to be put in these just chatting categories. They want to be put in the masses and in normal categories so that, you know, they reach a wider audience. Because I also saw someone say like, oh, why doesn't Twitch just have an NSFW category and just call it a day? Because the reason why is because these girls won't actually stream in that NSFW category. They won't, because people who go to click on that category are specifically looking for it. Yeah, there are people who are looking for it on Twitch, but these girls, and I'm saying girls because it's mostly girls. You cannot tell me that there are real guys. The only guys that have done this are ones that are taking the piss out of this category. The only ones that have done this that have come to my mind that are big is Tectone and Boogie. Tectone did it because it was like it was literally a black bar meta that was going around, and Tectone's just like, I'm gonna take the piss out of this, and I'm just gonna sit here with a black bar covering my crotch and fucking taking the piss out of it. And then Boogie did the exact same, but obviously Boogie just fucking pushed it to the next level, and instead of using a black bar or, you know, just at least keeping his underwear, man literally dropped trowel, and the only thing that was covering his fucking wiener was his gigantic stomach. That is the only, but the people who are actually like using the meta to try and take advantage of, like, you know, people trying to click on their streams are girls. And the only girls that are actually doing this meta are OnlyFans girls. And obviously when it comes to them, they're already going to get people who want to go look for their content. There's already going to be people like that. Of course there is. They already follow them. They go look for that shit, but they want to try and reach that wider audience that doesn't necessarily, you know, go looking for it and just happens to stumble upon it and goes, what the fuck is this? Chick without a top on? Fuck yeah, I'm 100% gonna click on this. And that leads into what Asman was saying, and one thing that I 100% agree with is that with them doing this, they're not necessarily getting rid of the problem. They're getting rid of a symptom. The problem is that these girls are going to keep pushing, you know, the guidelines to as much as possible. And there's a new meta that's just going to come out tomorrow. Like, give it a week and there's going to be a whole nother meta that people are going crazy about and saying like, what the fuck is this? This is new meta is absolutely stupid. I can't believe that Twitch is allowing this. Give it a week and it's going to happen again, because these girls are trying to push this meta because they're advertising for their OnlyFans. That's the problem. But the thing is that, like, Twitch blatantly doesn't allow you to straight up like advertise your OnlyFans on Twitch. It's actually in their community guidelines where you're not allowed to straight up advertise this on Twitch. So a lot of these girls will say like, hey, go to my Twitter or go to my Instagram and click on that link there for a surprise, and they're advertising their OnlyFans. But people know this, but Twitch can't ban them because it's not, you know, straight up breaking their guidelines, because they're not necessarily advertising their OnlyFans on Twitch. So they can't get rid of these girls unless they say that, you know, if you are some kind of explicit worker or you do OnlyFans, you're not allowed to stream. That'd be the only reason, but at the same time, that would be somewhat unethical. I also think that this right here isn't the worst thing that people can do on Twitch. I mean, people can still twerk on Twitch. People can still do hot tub streams. Like, there is so much things that are so much worse on Twitch than this. If anything, hot tub streams to me are worse than a chick just sitting there with like a black bar, because you've seen these girls, like Amaranth being one of them, where she's doing a hot tub stream and she's riding on a giant pickle. What the fuck do you think that pickle implies? It's a giant cylinder object. What do you think that implies? A girl twerking her ass. What do you think that implies? I honestly think that a girl twerking and a girl, like, you know, riding on a giant pickle in a hot tub all wet from water, even though she's wearing a bikini, is a lot worse than some chick just sitting there in front of her camera just like this with a black bar covering her top, just going, oh my god, thank you so much for the 5 subs. Oh my god, yes, thank you so much. Oh my god, a raid. I think that's a lot worse. I saw Asman say it as well, and even I would agree with him as well, is that sometimes ASMR can be worse. Because what is ASMR implying? A lot of people who do ASMR, 90% of the ASMR category is girls doing the one with like where they go up to the ear microphone, which I think is fucking weird as. And the sounds that they are doing are implied sexual sounds. Those things are a lot worse than this guideline itself. I just think that they had to get rid of this guideline is because people pushed it past like what it actually was. That's the only reason why. And I will not be fucking surprised if, like I said, another meta comes out in a new week, in the next week or so, and then people push that to its breaking point. That will not surprise me either. I see it happening. I see a new meta coming out in a week. It's always been like that. Just remember, people think that this is a new thing. The hot tub meta was like 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And we always get a new meta. Whether it's a week from now, a month from now, a fucking year from now. There will be a new meta that pushes the guidelines to its brink. And Twitch will either allow it or remove the guideline altogether. We just have to wait and see what it is. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. I'd really like to hear what you have to think. That's it from me. Peace out.